Have you ever noticed how the first few thoughts of your morning often determine the direction of your entire day? Most people wake up and immediately surrender their minds to stress, distractions, and endless notifications. Before they even get out of bed, they have already lost control of their focus, emotions, and discipline. But the Stoics understood something different. They knew that greatness is not built through motivation. It is built through the thoughts you repeat every single day and remind you who is truly in control of your life. Just a few sentences spoken with intention can transform the way you face challenges, resist distractions, and pursue your goals. In this video, you'll discover 5 Stoic lines inspired by the wisdom of Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and Epictetus. These aren't ordinary affirmations. They are timeless principles designed to build unbreakable discipline, mental toughness, and inner strength. Listen carefully, repeat them daily, and watch how your mind and your life begin to change. Lesson 1. Stop explaining yourself to everyone. One of the most common ways people unknowingly diminish their own value is by feeling the need to explain everything, explaining why you made a certain decision, explaining why you chose your own path, explaining why you declined an offer, explaining why you changed careers, ended a relationship, or pursued a dream that others simply do not understand. At first glance, this seems completely normal. You believe you are simply helping others understand you better. You think that if you explain yourself clearly enough, they will empathize with you, support you, or at least stop judging you. But this is where the problem begins. Sometimes, the urge to explain does not come from clarity, it comes from insecurity. It appears when you feel that your choices are not valid until someone else approves of them. It appears when you unconsciously hand over the authority to judge your life to other people. The Stoic philosophers recognized this truth thousands of years ago. Epictetus once said that if you want to be a writer, then write. He did not say to spend your time going around explaining to everyone why you want to write. He did not say to wait for approval before you begin. He simply said, act, because strong people do not spend their lives defending what they believe in. They spend their lives living according to what they believe in. Think about it. How many times have you spent hours explaining a decision to someone who is not living your life? How many times have you walked away from a conversation exhausted because you felt compelled to defend your perspective? The truth is, not everyone will understand you, and that is perfectly normal. Not everyone sees life through the same lens. Not everyone has the same experiences. Not everyone shares the same values. Therefore, expecting everyone to understand and agree with every decision you make is unrealistic. Yet many people devote a large portion of their energy trying to achieve exactly that. They live as though life were a courtroom where every decision must be justified before society's jury. They feel the need to explain why they quit their job, why they are single, why they abandoned a secure path, why they changed, why they refuse to live like everyone else. And the more they explain, the more dependent they become on external validation. What is the greatest danger? Every time you try to convince someone that your choice is correct, you silently tell yourself that your own judgment is not trustworthy enough. You hand over the power to determine the value of your life to someone else. The Stoics taught that peace comes only when we focus on what lies within our control. Other people's opinions are not within that control, but you can control how you respond. You can choose to keep moving forward even without approval. That is real strength. The most confident people are often not the loudest ones, nor are they the people constantly trying to prove they are right. They are simply people who know themselves deeply. They know who they are, they know where they are going, and because of that, they do not feel the need to constantly explain themselves. Observe people with a powerful presence. They do not spend hours defending every decision. They do not endlessly seek validation. They act, and their actions become the most powerful explanation of all. When a person truly believes in their choices, They do not turn every conversation into a debate. They do not need to win every disagreement. They do not need everyone to agree with them, because they understand one simple truth. The value of a decision is not determined by the number of people who approve of it. The value of a decision is determined by whether it aligns with your principles and your purpose. This does not mean becoming cold or refusing to listen to others. Good advice always has value. Sincere feedback is always worth appreciating. But there is a profound difference between listening and living for approval. The wise listen in order to learn. The insecure listen in order to be validated. And those are two entirely different paths. When you stop over-explaining, something remarkable happens. You feel lighter. You no longer carry the burden of making everyone understand you. You stop wasting energy defending every choice. You stop worrying about whether someone agrees with you. Instead, you focus on living according to your values. You let results speak for you. You let actions reveal your character. You let your life become the answer. The next time you feel the urge to explain a decision to someone, pause for a moment. Ask yourself, is this person's understanding truly necessary for me to move forward? If the answer is no, then perhaps silence will be more powerful than any explanation. And when you reach that state, you realize that not everyone needs to understand you. Not everyone needs to agree with you. Not everyone needs to approve of you. What matters most is that you understand yourself, you believe in yourself, and you are strong enough to keep moving forward even when there is no applause behind you. That is the moment you stop diminishing yourself. That is the moment you begin living with the dignity of a true Stoic. Remember this: the weak try to explain their value. The strong live in such a way that their value becomes undeniable. Lesson 2. Stop competing for attention. Only of the most subtle ways people lose their sense of self-worth is by constantly seeking attention from others. It is a trap that many people fall into, yet few ever recognize. They think they are simply trying to connect. They think they just want to be acknowledged. They think they only want a little more care and appreciation. But over time, that desire quietly turns into dependence. They begin measuring their worth by the amount of attention they receive from others. If someone replies to their message quickly, they feel important. If someone praises them, they feel confident. If someone ignores them, they feel hurt. If someone doesn't notice them, they begin to doubt themselves. And that is the moment they hand over control of their happiness to other people. Think about this. How many people spend most of their energy every day simply trying to be seen? They post contents seeking likes. They talk more than necessary to impress others. They try to become what other people want instead of being themselves. They do everything they can to be chosen, to be recognized, to be noticed. But the sad reality is that the harder they chase attention, the emptier they become, because attention can never fill the void within. The Stoic philosophers understood this long ago. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the human soul becomes colored by the thoughts it repeatedly entertains. If your mind constantly revolves around questions like, how can I make them notice me? How can I make them appreciate me? How can I prove my worth to them? Then your life gradually becomes an endless race. You will always feel insufficient, always feel that you need more, always feel that you must try harder to be recognized. And it is a battle you can never win, because there will always be someone receiving more attention than you. There will always be someone more visible. There will always be someone more admired. If you build your self-worth on that foundation, you are building a house on sand. Everything can collapse at any moment. The truth is that people of real value do not spend their lives chasing attention, and that is precisely what naturally draws attention to them. It is one of life's great paradoxes. The people who crave attention the most often struggle the hardest to obtain it. Meanwhile, those who do not chase it often attract it effortlessly. Why? Because genuine confidence does not come from the need to be recognized. It comes from being at peace with yourself. Look at the people you truly respect. They are not constantly trying to impress others. They do not follow the crowd. They do not change themselves to become more likable. They simply live according to their values, and that creates a stronger presence than any display of self-promotion ever could. One of the biggest mistakes people make is trying to earn the attention of those who do not appreciate them. They are always the first to text, always trying to please, always proving their worth, always searching for validation that was never truly there. But the harder they try, the more exhausted they become, because respect cannot be begged for. Genuine interest cannot be forced. If someone only pays attention to you when you constantly work to please them, that is not respect, that is dependency, and dependency always leads to suffering. Epictetus taught that if you wish to grow, you must be willing to be misunderstood. That is an incredibly powerful lesson. It means being strong enough to keep moving forward even when nobody acknowledges your efforts. It means being calm enough to continue building your value in silence. It means being confident enough not to turn your life into a marketing campaign for yourself, because things of true value do not need constant proof. An ancient tree does not need to shout to demonstrate its strength. A mountain does not need advertising to prove its greatness. Real value always speaks for itself. When you stop competing for attention, something remarkable begins to happen. You regain control of your life. You no longer wake up worried about what others think. You no longer depend on their reactions. You no longer feel wounded every time you are overlooked. Instead, you focus on becoming a better version of yourself every day. You build skills. You develop wisdom. You strengthen your character. You cultivate inner peace. And then something interesting happens. The people who once ignored you begin to notice you. The people who once underestimated you begin to respect you, not because you tried harder, but because you stopped trying to earn their approval. That is the power of self-mastery. The Stoics understood that a person's worth is not determined by how many people are watching them. It is determined by how they live when nobody is watching. Attention does not create value. Value creates attention. So stop running in a race you never signed up for. Stop seeking validation from people who fail to see your worth. Stop trying to convince the world that you are enough. Instead, focus on building a life that makes you proud. Live according to your principles. But self-respect stays with you for a lifetime. And when you truly understand your worth, you will no longer need to chase anyone's gaze. You will walk with the calm confidence of someone who knows exactly who they are. And that is the kind of power that no one can ever take away from you. Lesson 3. Learn to walk away without a warning. Most people believe that strength lies in fighting. They believe that a strong person is someone who is always ready to argue, prove themselves right, or win every confrontation. But the Stoic philosophers saw strength in a completely different way. To them, one of the highest expressions of strength is not staying to fight. It is knowing when to leave, and more importantly, leaving without a warning, without threats, without explanations, without delivering a long speech so others can understand how you feel, simply walking away. Because sometimes, silence is the most powerful statement a person can make. One of the main reasons people lose their self-respect is that they stay too long in places that no longer deserve them. They remain in relationships that bring them nothing but pain. They stay in one-sided friendships. They remain in environments that drain them day after day. They stay not because they are happy, but because they are hopeful. Hopeful that the other person will change. Hopeful that things will get better. Hopeful that if they try just a little harder, they will finally be appreciated. But life often does not work that way. Some people will repeatedly show you exactly who they are, and the biggest mistake is refusing to believe what they are showing you. You keep staying. You keep giving chances. You keep waiting. Meanwhile, with every passing day, your self-respect is worn away a little more. The Stoics understood that some things in life cannot be fixed through patience alone. Not every door needs to remain open. Not every relationship needs to be saved. Not every battle is worth fighting. Seneca emphasized that we should associate with people who help us become better, while we in turn help them grow as well. That means healthy relationships must be mutually uplifting. If an environment constantly pulls you down, if a person constantly makes you feel like you are not enough, if a place continuously steals your peace, then staying is no longer loyalty. It becomes self-betrayal. That is what many people fail to realize. They think endurance is strength. They think unconditional sacrifice is noble. They think staying at all costs is a sign of love or responsibility. But sometimes, what you call loyalty is actually fear of letting go. You fear loneliness. You fear starting over. You fear losing what is familiar. And so you continue staying in situations that are hurting you. The Stoics would call this trading your peace for familiarity. And that is far too high a price to pay. Interestingly, many people feel the need to issue warnings before they leave. They say, if you don't change, I'll leave. If this continues, I won't tolerate it anymore. I'm at my limit. But most of the time, those warnings do not create real change. They only create temporary reactions. The other person may apologize. They may make promises. They may behave better for a few days or a few weeks. But eventually, everything returns to the way it was. Why? Because they are not changing through awareness. They are changing through fear of losing what they have. And changes driven by fear rarely last. That is why the Stoics believed that once you have observed a pattern long enough, you do not need more evidence. You do not need more promises. You do not need more reasons. You simply need to act. Walking away in silence does not mean you are weak. On the contrary, it requires tremendous strength, because you are giving up the need to be understood. You are giving up the need to be proven right. You are giving up the need to make others feel guilty. You no longer need them to agree with your decision. You no longer need them to validate your pain. You simply choose peace, and that is a rare form of freedom. Marcus Aurelius reminded us that we cannot control how others treat us, but we can always control how we respond. You cannot force someone to respect you. You cannot force someone to love you. You cannot force someone to change. But you can absolutely decide whether you will continue to remain in that situation. That is real power. Every time you walk away from something that no longer aligns with your values, you send a message to yourself. You are saying, I deserve better. I respect myself. I will no longer accept what harms me. Over time, decisions like these build unshakable self-respect. You stop fearing the loss of other people. You stop fearing being left behind. You stop clinging to things that are slowly destroying you. You realize that losing your peace is far more frightening than losing any person. And something interesting happens. When you learn to walk away in silence, people begin to see you differently. They realize that you do not cling, you do not beg, you do not force, you do not depend. And that is what creates respect. Not because you tried to make them respect you. Not every departure needs an explanation. Sometimes, the strongest action is to walk away in silence, without resentment, without hatred, without seeking revenge, simply choosing yourself. Because every time you leave behind what no longer deserves your value, you are not losing anything. You are protecting the most precious things you possess, your dignity, your peace, and your self-respect. Lesson 4. Protect your time like gold. There is something more valuable than money, more valuable than fame, more valuable than any material possession a person can own. That thing is time. Yet one of life's greatest paradoxes is that most people protect their money more carefully than they protect their own time. If someone takes money from you, you notice immediately. You feel the loss. You try to recover it. But when an hour is wasted, when a day passes without meaning, or when an entire year is consumed by things that do not matter, many people do not even realize it is happening. The Stoic philosophers understood long ago that time is not merely a part of life. Time is life itself. Seneca once wrote that the problem is not that we have too little time to live. because every minute that passes is a piece of your life disappearing forever, and no force in the world can bring it back. Think about it for a moment. Can you remember exactly what you were doing on the same day 1 year ago? Most people cannot, not because they have poor memories, but because so much of their time was spent on things that created no meaning, pointless conversations, hours of mindless scrolling, unnecessary arguments, worrying about things beyond their control. All of these quietly steal pieces of a life that can never be reclaimed. That is why the Stoics viewed time management as an act of self-respect, because the way you use your time reflects the way you value yourself. If you constantly allow others to waste your time, you are silently saying that your life is not particularly important. If you repeatedly abandon your personal goals to satisfy unnecessary demands from others, you are sending the message that your value comes after everything else, and over time, people will treat your time exactly the way you treat it. Observe those who have no boundaries. They always say yes. They are always available. They always respond to every request. At first, this may seem kind, but eventually people begin to take their presence for granted, not because others are cruel, but because they have never shown that their time has value. In contrast, people who protect their time often earn greater respect. They understand that every yes is also a no to something else. When you say yes to things that do not matter, you are saying no to things that truly do. Saying yes to distractions may mean saying no to the future you desire. The Stoics constantly reminded us that we cannot control how long we live, but to cultivate awareness, because when you truly understand that time is limited, you begin to see life differently. You stop postponing what matters. You stop wasting energy on meaningless battles. You stop allowing others to decide how you should live. And you begin asking a powerful question. Is this truly worthy of my time? It is a simple question, yet it has the power to transform an entire life. Imagine that every morning you are given $86,400 and must spend it all before the day ends. You would think carefully about how to use that money. You would not throw it away on worthless things. You would try to invest it wisely. But every day, life gives you 86,400 seconds, and most people spend them without awareness. They allow others to take their time. They allow bad habits to steal their lives. They allow small distractions to slowly become wasted years. It is built through how you use each hour, each day, and each moment. That is why you must learn to say no. No to things that drain your energy. No to pointless arguments. No to relationships that only take and never give. No to habits that pull you away from the best version of yourself. That does not make you selfish. It makes you responsible for your life. One of the greatest mistakes people make is believing they still have plenty of time, that one day they will begin, that one day they will change, that one day they will pursue what truly matters. But that day does not arrive on its own. It comes only when you decide to value your time today. When you begin protecting your time, something remarkable happens. You become more focused. You become more peaceful. You become more productive. And most importantly, you begin living intentionally. You are no longer pulled in every direction by external demands. You no longer react to everything happening around you. You consciously choose where to place your energy and attention. That is true freedom. Remember this. Money lost can be earned again. A damaged reputation can be rebuilt. Even mistakes can be corrected. But time that has passed will never return. So protect your time like gold. No, protect it as something even more precious than gold. Because gold is merely a possession. Time is your life. And a true Stoic understands that respecting your time is, ultimately, respecting yourself. Lesson 5. Speak less, but speak with more value in a world where everyone wants to be heard. And sometimes, the loudest noise comes from within ourselves. We talk too much. We speak to fill the silence. We speak to impress. We speak to prove our worth. We speak to gain attention. But the irony is that the more we speak, the less weight our words carry. The Stoic philosophers understood this deeply. They did not see silence as a sign of weakness. On the contrary, they viewed it as an expression of wisdom and self-mastery. Epictetus once reminded us that we have 2 ears and only one mouth. That is not an accident. Nature seems to be sending us a very clear message. Listen more than you speak, because wise people understand that not every thought needs to be spoken, not every emotion needs to be expressed, and not every argument is worth joining. Think about the people you truly admire. Most of them are not the loudest people in the room. They are not the ones constantly demanding the spotlight. They do not interrupt every discussion. Instead, they observe, they listen, they reflect, and when they finally speak, people pay attention. Why? Because their words carry weight. Every sentence has a purpose. Every opinion is carefully considered. They do not waste their words on meaningless things. In contrast, many people lose respect simply because they speak too much. They share every thought that enters their mind. They react to every criticism. They explain every action. They involve themselves in every debate. And eventually, they become exhausted because every word consumes energy. Every argument steals peace. Every attempt to prove yourself gives someone else power over your emotions. Marcus Aurelius offered a simple principle. If it is not true, do not say it. If it is not right, do not do it. It is a powerful filter for every word you speak. Before you speak, ask yourself, is it true? Is it necessary? Does it add value? If the answer is no, silence is often the wiser choice. One reason so many people talk too much is that they are afraid of being forgotten. They fear that others will not notice them. They fear being seen as unintelligent. They fear silence itself. But the Stoics understood that silence is not an empty space that must be filled. It is a space for clarity. In moments of silence, you see things more clearly. You do not react emotionally. You do not say things you will later regret. You do not allow anger to control your words. You maintain mastery over yourself, and that is a rare form of strength. Think back to the times when you said something in anger. It may have taken only seconds to say it, but it may have taken days, months, or even years to repair the damage. The Stoics understood that words are like arrows. Once released from the bow, they cannot be called back. That is why they always created space between emotion and reaction. They paused. They reflected. They allowed reason to lead instead of emotion. And because of that, they avoided much unnecessary suffering. Speaking less does not mean becoming cold or distant, nor does it mean refusing to communicate. Its true meaning is intentional communication. You speak when your words have value. You speak up when it is necessary. You defend your principles when the situation requires it. But you do not feel obligated to have an opinion on everything. You do not feel compelled to constantly prove yourself. You do not feel the need to win every argument, because you understand that peace is more valuable than always being right. Another benefit of speaking less is that you begin to observe more. You notice things you once overlooked. You recognize the true motives of others. While they are busy expressing themselves, you are learning. While they are trying to impress, you are gaining understanding. That is the advantage of a person who knows how to listen. Over time, your presence begins to change. You no longer need to attract attention through words. You no longer need to be the loudest person in the room. Your calmness starts to create influence. People sense your confidence, not through what you say, but through what you do not need to say. That is a form of quiet power, a kind of strength that does not come from overpowering others, but from mastering yourself. In the end, remember this: your value is not determined by the number of words you use. The person who speaks the most is not always the most influential. The loudest person is not always the strongest. People of true worth rarely feel the need to constantly prove it. They let their actions speak. They let their character speak. They let their consistency speak. And when they finally speak, their words carry the weight of someone who truly knows themselves. So learn to speak less, but speak with greater value. Let silence become your ally. Let words become a tool rather than a habit, because in Stoic philosophy, true strength does not come from speaking endlessly. It comes from knowing exactly when to speak and when to remain silent. And that is the mark of a mature mind, a strong character, and a person who has truly mastered themselves. Diminishing yourself is rarely the result of one major decision. It does not happen in a single moment. It happens little by little. One time you stay silent when you should have spoken up. One time you over-explain yourself just to gain acceptance. One time you seek attention from someone who does not value you. One time you stay too long in a place that no longer aligns with who you are. One time you waste your time on things that add no value. One time you speak simply to prove yourself. Individually, these moments may seem insignificant, but over time, they accumulate. And one day you realize that you are living a life that no longer belongs to you. You begin to feel exhausted. You feel invisible. You feel as though your worth depends too much on other people. This is exactly what the Stoic philosophers warned against, because the moment you allow the outside world to determine your value is the moment you surrender your inner freedom. Stoicism does not promise an easy life. It does not promise that everyone will like you. It does not promise that you will avoid criticism or disappointment, but it offers something far more valuable: the ability to remain grounded in yourself amid the storms of life. Throughout today's journey, we have explored 5 important lessons, 5 simple principles with the power to transform the way you see yourself and the way you live each day. First, stop explaining yourself to everyone. Not everyone needs to understand you. Not everyone will agree with you. And that is perfectly okay. When you trust your values and principles, you no longer need the approval of the crowd to keep moving forward. Second, stop competing for attention. Attention is temporary. Today people may admire you, tomorrow they may forget you, but self-respect endures. Strong people do not chase the gaze of others. They quietly focus on building their own value. Third, learn to walk away when necessary. Not every door is worth knocking on forever. Not every relationship is worth preserving at any cost. Sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is not to stay and endure. It is to walk away calmly while carrying your dignity with you. Fourth, protect your time as your most precious asset. Because time is not merely a part of life. Time is life itself. Every passing hour is a piece of your life that you will never get back. Use it wisely, for growth, for peace, for the people who truly deserve it. And finally, learn to speak less but speak with greater value. Not every thought needs to be spoken. Not every argument deserves your participation. Not every provocation requires a response. Sometimes, the silence of a self-disciplined person is more powerful than any words. What is the common thread connecting all 5 lessons? Self-respect. Because when you respect yourself, you no longer feel the need to prove your worth to others. You no longer seek attention. You no longer fear walking away. You no longer waste time on meaningless things. You no longer speak merely to be heard. Instead, you live according to the principles you believe in. You act in alignment with your values. You preserve your inner peace even when the outside world is chaotic. That is the true power the Stoic philosophers pursued. Not power over other people, but power over themselves. So starting today, make one promise to yourself. Do not shrink yourself to fit other people's expectations. Do not trade your dignity for approval. Do not abandon your values simply to be liked. Walk with the confidence of someone who knows exactly who they are. Live according to principles that cannot be bought, manipulated, or changed by others. And remember this: your importance does not come from money, fame, or the attention of the crowd. It comes from the ability to look in the mirror each day and know that you did not betray yourself. That is the greatest victory. That is the greatest freedom. And that is the path of a true Stoic. As we come to the end of this video, remember one important Stoic truth. Your future is not shaped by what you do occasionally. It is shaped by what you do consistently. These 5 Stoic lines may seem simple, but their power lies in repetition. Every morning is a new opportunity to train your mind, strengthen your character, and choose discipline over distraction. The world will always offer excuses. There will always be reasons to delay, complain, or give up. But the Stoics remind us that true freedom comes from mastering ourselves, not controlling circumstances. So tomorrow morning, before you check your phone, before you scroll through social media, and before the demands of the day begin, take a moment to repeat these 5 lines. Let them become part of your identity, because discipline is not something you find. It is something you build, one thought, one choice, one morning at a time. If you found value in this video, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who is committed to becoming stronger, wiser, and more disciplined every day. And remember the words of Marcus Aurelius: the happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. Thank you for watching, and until next time, stay calm, stay disciplined, stay stoic.